If you think you know me, the real me, you're wrong. Because even I don't recognize myself when the shadows in my hallway start to move and memories I'd buried years ago begin to claw their way up my spine. My name is Sophie Taylor. I'm 22. I live in a too-small apartment above a bakery that always smells like burnt sugar, and I am the queen of pretending nothing can touch me. I've survived college heartbreak, the world's worst roommate, and parents who divorced, remarried, and never once asked me how I really felt about suddenly having a brother. But this story isn't about what I've survived. It's about what came back for me. Just when I thought I was finally safe, if you'd asked me a week ago about Finn, I'd have said I didn't think about him. That's a lie. I lied to everyone about Finn. My friends, my parents, my therapist, and worst of all, myself. Because if you say something often enough, maybe it becomes true. Maybe you stop dreaming about the way he left in the middle of the night. No explanation, just a note that said, "Sorry, Soph, I can't stay. Don't look for me." 3 years. 3 years of silence. And then, one rain-soaked Thursday at 2:16 a.m., Finn is standing in my hallway. He's soaked to the skin, taller than I remember, with eyes that look both older and somehow haunted. I freeze halfway down the stairs, phone in hand. I'm not sure if I should scream, laugh, or just keep pretending I don't care. He doesn't say my name. He just looks at me the way he used to when we were kids, and he'd just broken something valuable. Half guilty, half hoping I'll forgive him anyway. For a full 10 seconds, neither of us speaks. The only sound is the drip, drip, drip of rain from his jacket onto the old wooden floorboards. Then, finally, I swallow. "You look terrible," I say, because it's easier than "why did you leave me?" A half smile flickers at the edge of his mouth. "Good to see you too, Sophie." His voice sounds like gravel, and suddenly I am 12 again, trailing after him at Dad's wedding, feeling out of place in a new family I didn't ask for. I step back, my hand on the railing. I should ask what he wants. I should call Mom and Dad. I should call the police even. He looks that desperate, but I just look at him. "Are you going to let me in?" he asks, soft but almost pleading. I almost say no. I almost do. But I don't. I open the door wider. Finn drops his duffel bag just inside the threshold and peels off his dripping jacket. I'm too stunned to move, so I just stand there, arms folded, heart pounding in my ears. "What are you doing here?" I finally manage. He looks around the tiny living room, like he's trying to piece together who I've become in the years since he left. There's a photo of me and my college friends on the bookshelf, a stack of overdue bills on the coffee table, my half-finished sketchbook open to a page I hope he doesn't notice. My life, all on display. Somehow it makes me feel naked. "Can I crash here tonight?" he asks, and it's so ordinary, so Finn, that I almost laugh. Like he hasn't been a ghost for 3 years. Like we're still siblings, fighting over the last slice of pizza. I shrug, pretending my hands aren't shaking. "Yeah, couch is yours." He sinks into the cushions, rubbing his face with both hands. "Thanks." I hover awkwardly by the door, unsure if I should offer him something to eat, a towel, a hug. I do none of those things. Instead, I ask, "Does Mom know you're here?" He shakes his head. "Nobody knows. I needed to see you first." That lands like a stone in my chest. "Why?" He doesn't answer. He just looks up at me, eyes so tired I almost don't recognize him. For a minute, neither of us moves. The clock ticks. The rain softens against the windows. I clear my throat. "Do you want tea?" He nods. "Yeah, tea sounds good." I make us mugs of chamomile, pretending the world is still normal. We sit in silence, steam curling between us, and I can't stop staring at his hands. The same hands that once built me a treehouse, that used to ruffle my hair when I was sad. Now they tremble, just a little. After a few minutes, Finn looks up. "I know you're angry." "Who says I'm angry?" I shoot back too fast. He almost smiles. "You're always angry, Soph. You're just better at hiding it than most people." He's not wrong. I am angry, but I'm also relieved and scared and weirdly hopeful. Because if Finn is back, Maybe I can finally ask all the questions that have been eating at me for years. Why now? I ask, voice soft. He shrugs, staring into his tea. It was time. Time for what? Finn glances up, and for a second, his mask slips. He looks vulnerable, the way he did that night he left. Only now, he's come back. That scares me more than anything. He sets down his mug. I need your help, Sophie. Just for a little while. Help with what? He hesitates. Just trust me, okay? I can't explain it yet, but will you come with me tomorrow? I just need one day. No questions. Please. I laugh, but it's brittle. You disappear for 3 years, show up in the middle of the night, and ask me to trust you? He nods. I know, but I don't know who else to ask. His voice cracks at the end, and something in me gives way. Maybe it's the years of missing him. Maybe it's the way he looks at me like I'm the only one who could possibly understand. I sigh, running a hand through my hair. Fine. 1 day. But after that, you owe me answers. He almost smiles. Deal. For a moment, everything feels suspended, as if the universe is holding its breath. We finish our tea in silence. I set up the couch with a blanket, and Finn murmurs thanks. As I head to my room, I pause in the doorway. I almost say goodnight, but the words stick in my throat. I lie awake for hours, listening to the rain, wondering what secrets Finn brought with him. And why, after everything, I still can't say no. If you'd ever asked me what it feels like to ride in a car with a ghost, I'd have told you it's impossible. Ghosts don't drive. But there I was, at 8 in the morning, buckling myself into the passenger seat of Finn's battered sedan, feeling more haunted than ever. I barely slept. I kept listening for footsteps in the hall, or the soft creak of the couch as Finn shifted in his sleep. Maybe I expected him to disappear again, back, into memory, or into some darker place I couldn't follow. But when I crept into the living room at sunrise, he was there, sitting upright, staring out the window as if watching for a sign. He looked at me with a small, grateful smile, like I was the only fixed point in a world that had come loose from its anchors. I wasn't sure you'd say yes, he said, voice raspy. Neither was I replied, grabbing my bag and my jacket. So where are we going? He hesitated, keys in his palm. You'll see. If that answer made me uneasy, I didn't show it. Or maybe I did, and Finn just didn't care. We drove in silence, past shuttered shops and dew-soaked lawns, out of the city and into the kind of back roads where trees pressed in on either side, blocking the sun and stealing the signal from my phone. Finn fiddled with the radio, but all we got was static. The air was thick with unspoken things. I kept glancing at him out of the corner of my eye, trying to map the differences. The sharper line of his jaw, the tension in his shoulders, the tiredness that seemed stitched into his skin. There was so much I didn't know, so much I wasn't sure I wanted to. After about 40 minutes, Finn slowed the car at a crumbling turnoff and pointed. We're here. I blinked. The old forest road. The last time I'd seen it, I was 15 and furious. Screaming at Finn over some stupid prank, running down the path toward the woods, swearing I'd never forgive him. It was a road for childhood adventures, secret packs, and summer days that always seemed to end too soon. But now the forest was silent, the road swallowed by green and gold. I shivered. Finn parked and killed the engine. The silence pressed in, almost alive. He glanced at me. You remember this place, right? I nodded, throat tight. Of course. For a moment, he just sat there, hands wrapped around the steering wheel. I watched him, waiting for him to move, to say something that would make all of this make sense. But Finn just breathed out slowly and opened his door. We should walk. We didn't speak as we hiked up the trail, dew soaking through my sneakers. The air smelled like pine and earth, and every step stirred up memories. I tried to focus on the sound of Finn's boots crunching over old leaves, the measured way he picked his way through the tangled undergrowth. Even here in the middle of nowhere, he moved like someone on the run. We reached the clearing where the cabin stood, our old summer hideaway. I almost laughed when I saw it. It was smaller than I remembered, the paint peeling, the windows clouded with dust. I half expected a bear to have taken up residence. Instead, it was empty, echoing with ghosts. Finn found the spare key under a loose stone and unlocked the door. Inside, it was exactly as we'd left it. Faded sleeping bags, a broken lantern, a box of crayons, old comic books, and a stack of yellowed letters tied up with string. He knelt by the crate and ran his hand over the top. "Remember this?" I nodded. I remembered more than I wanted to. Secret handshakes, whispered dares, the way we swore we'd never leave each other behind. The promise had shattered the night Finn vanished. Finn looked up, his eyes catching the shaft of morning sun. "I wanted you to see this before I told you everything." He untied the bundle of letters and handed me the top one. The handwriting was his, messy and looping. "Sophie, if you're reading this, I'm sorry. I wanted to stay. I just couldn't. Please don't forget me." My throat closed. I remembered this letter, but I'd never seen it before. Had Finn written it after he left? Or before? Finn watched me, eyes shining. "I wrote them all that night. I left one under your pillow, but I guess I wasn't brave enough to let you find it." I flipped through the letters, some angry, some scared, some so raw I couldn't read them, without feeling something in my chest twist. "Why did you bring me here, Finn?" I whispered. He sat back, rubbing his face. "Because this is the only place that ever felt real. I didn't know where else to start." I looked at him. Really looked. He was shaking. Not just from cold, but from whatever storm he was holding. Back inside. "Finn," I said softly, "you can tell me, whatever it is. I'm not going anywhere." He pressed his palms to his eyes, took a shuddering breath, and said nothing. I sat down beside him, the letters between us. The silence filled the room, stretching until it felt like something might snap. He finally spoke, voice barely above a whisper. "I made a mess, Soph, a big one, and I can't fix it on my own." "What kind of mess?" He shook his head. "Not yet. I need you to know I never meant to leave you alone. I thought I was protecting you. Maybe I was wrong." Hands curled around the letters. "Finn, you don't have to protect me. Not anymore." He laughed, but it sounded hollow. "Yeah, maybe." For the next hour, we cleaned the cabin together, saying nothing. We aired out musty blankets, swept away dust, unearthed a forgotten Polaroid of the two of us, arms flung around each other, grinning like fools. It hurt to look at. I tucked it into my jacket pocket when Finn wasn't looking. The sun moved across the sky. Finn paced the floor, glancing at me like he was trying to find the right words, the right moment. I could feel the tension winding tighter and tighter. Just as dusk fell, Finn lit the old lantern and sat down across from me at the little wooden table. "I have to show you something," he said. "But I'm warning you, it's not easy." I swallowed. "I'm not leaving." He reached into his duffel and pulled out a small battered notebook, the kind he used to scribble secrets in. He slid it across the table to me, hands trembling. "Read the last page," he said. I opened the notebook. My eyes ran over lists, half-finished sentences, frantic sketches, then, on the last page, a scrawled address and a single line. "Don't trust anyone, not even family." The words hit me like a slap. "What is this?" I whispered. Finn's face crumpled. "It's the truth, Soph. And tomorrow I'll tell you everything. But for tonight, please, just stay." His voice cracked. His eyes shone in the lantern light, lost, pleading, terrified. For a long time, I just stared at him, the past and present tangling in my chest. I knew I should be angry. Maybe I still was. But when Finn broke down at the edge of his silence, all I could do was move to his side, put my hand on his shoulder, and say the only thing I'd said to him that felt real. I'm here, Finn. I'm not going anywhere. That night, sleep came fitfully. The wind rattled the cabin, and old memories pressed in at every turn. I lay awake, heart pounding, waiting for morning, waiting for Finn's secrets, and for the truth that might change everything. If anyone ever tells you that the truth sets you free, they've never had someone they love sit across a splintered table and look at them like the world might end with their next breath. That's how Finn looked at me the next morning, as the pale sun filtered through the dusty glass, and the birds outside seemed to hold their song. He didn't touch his tea. I didn't touch mine. The notebook lay between us like a threat. I wanted to rush him, shake the answers out of him, but I didn't. I waited, listening to the wind rattle the window panes and my own heart beating too loud in my ears. It was Finn who broke the silence. I owe you everything, Soph. And I owe you the truth. His voice was rough with sleep and regret. For a moment, I saw the boy I'd grown up with, brave, infuriating, always the first to jump off a rock into the cold river just because he dared me. But now there was something older behind his eyes. Fear, shame, a grief he didn't know how to carry. He reached for the notebook with unsteady hands. Last time I was here, I thought running away would make everything easier. For me, for you, for Mom and Dad. But it didn't. It just made the mess bigger. He flipped to the final page, the address, the warning. His finger traced the words. You want to know what happened? Why I left? He looked up, and for the first time, I saw real terror in his face. You have to promise me, Sophie. Promise you'll listen all the way through, even if it doesn't make sense at first. I nodded, silent, hands in my lap. My heart was hammering. He took a deep breath. It started with Dad's old business. Partner, Paul. You remember him, right? I nodded. A flash of memory. A gruff handshake. The sharp smell of aftershave. The way he'd always seemed to watch us a little too closely at family barbecues. He got into some trouble. Finny said, words coming out clipped. Money trouble. Dad tried to help. But Paul, he made it worse. Got involved with the wrong people. Dad thought he could fix it, keep it away from us. But then Paul came to me. I frowned. Why you? Finn's jaw tightened. Because I was stupid. Because I thought I could handle it, and I didn't want to worry anyone. Especially not you. He looked away, staring into the corner where dust motes drifted like secrets. Paul asked me to deliver a package. Just one. He said it was nothing illegal, just paperwork. He said Dad needed it. I didn't question him. I should have. Minute I dropped it off, I knew I'd made a mistake. What was in the package? I asked, barely above a whisper. Finn shook his head. I still don't know. But after that, things started happening. I got weird phone calls, notes under my door. Someone followed me home from school. I tried to tell Dad, but he said to leave it alone, that he'd handle it. But he didn't. His voice faltered, raw and trembling. I left because I thought they'd come after you next. I figured if I disappeared, they'd stop looking. But it didn't work that way. It just made it worse. And I couldn't come back until I knew you were safe. The silence in the cabin grew heavier, filled with all the things we never said. I tried to process the story, the fear, the secrecy, the night Finn left. I remembered my own confusion, anger, and the endless months where every knock at the door made me flinch. So what now? I asked. Why come back now after all this time? Finn let out a shuddering sigh. Because it's not over, Soph. Someone left a note at my last job. Just an address, and that line. Don't trust anyone. Not even family. I think it's Paul or someone working for him. I think he wants something from me. Maybe from Dad. I don't know. But I can't run anymore. I need to figure out what happened. And I can't do it alone. My chest tightened. I wanted to be angry at him, to shout at the universe for making us pay for someone else's mistakes. But all I could feel was an aching tenderness for the boy who'd once promised to protect me, even when it meant breaking both our hearts. "You should have told me," I whispered. He laughed, but it was a hollow sound. "Yeah, I should have." "But you were just a kid?" "I was never just a kid to you," I snapped, sharper than I meant. "You made me your partner in crime, remember? Your best friend? You should have trusted me." He nodded, ashamed. "I know. I do now. If anything happened to you because of me," I reached across the table, hesitating just before touching his hand. "Nothing happened. I'm here. You're here. That's what matters." He looked at me, searching my face for something: anger, blame, forgiveness. I didn't know what he found, but after a moment, his shoulders relaxed. For a long while, we just sat, the weight of old hurts slowly giving way to something like hope. Outside, the sun climbed higher, gilding the forest in gold. Finally, Finn stood pacing the cramped cabin. "There's one more thing." He dug into his jacket and pulled out a small, tarnished key. He pressed it into my palm. "What's this?" He met my eyes, determination burning through the fear. "Tomorrow, I need you to come with me, to the boathouse. You remember it?" I nodded, stomach twisting. The old boathouse by the lake was a place we'd avoided since Dad's accident. Another memory we never talked about. "There's something there," Finn said, voice quiet. "Something Paul left, or maybe Dad. I don't know. I just know it's the last piece of the puzzle." He closed my fingers around the key, his hand trembling. "We'll go together," I promised. Finn let out a breath as if he'd been holding it for years. "Thank you." I smiled, just a little. "You owe me so many answers, Finn." He grinned, a flash of the old mischief breaking through. "Tomorrow, I'll give you everything. I promise." The rest of the day passed in a strange peace. We aired out the cabin, swept the floor, and made lists of everything we remembered about Paul, about Dad, about that summer. I found myself laughing at things I thought I'd forgotten. The time we tried to catch frogs and ended up falling in the lake, the way Finn always claimed the top bunk, the way he used to make up stories when the power went out. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was something close. That night, we built a fire in the old stone ring outside, and Finn told me stories about the cities he'd lived in, the jobs he'd taken, the people he'd met. Some of them made me laugh, some made me ache with sadness. But for the first time in years, it felt like we were finding our way back to each other. Not as step-siblings, not as kids, but as something stronger, something only we could understand. The stars came out, Finn poked at the embers and said, "I always knew I'd come back here. I just didn't know if you'd be here too." I looked up at the sky, and for the first time, the future didn't seem quite so terrifying. I never really left Finn. Not in the ways that count. He nodded, eyes shining in the firelight. Later, lying awake in my sleeping bag, I turned the key over and over in my hand, listening to Finn's slow, steady breathing on the other side of the room. The truth was out now, at least the worst of it. But tomorrow, the real answers waited by the lake. And even though my heart pounded with fear, I knew I wouldn't face them alone. I always thought I hated mornings at the lake. They were always too cold, too damp, with a thin mist clinging to the ground and a silence so deep it made me uncomfortable. But as Finn and I stood at the edge of the old path, the air sharp in our lungs and the first pink light stretching over the trees, I realized what I actually hated was the waiting. The moments before something changes. The key Finn had given me last night sat heavy in my jacket pocket. I kept running my thumb over its grooves as we walked, letting my thoughts spiral. What if we found nothing? What if we found something we didn't want? What if everything I thought I knew about Finn, about my family, about myself, was wrong? Finn was quiet beside me, shoulders hunched. He kept glancing over his shoulder as if he half expected someone to be following us. His anxiety was infectious. By the time we broke out of the trees and reached the shore, my nerves felt like live wires. The lake was mirror still, reflecting a sky the color of bruised peaches. I could see our breath in the air, mingling in pale clouds. The boathouse stood at the far end of the dock, dilapidated but still holding together. The red paint faded almost to gray. I stopped at the edge of the dock, memories surging up all at once. The last time I'd been here, Dad had still been alive. He'd taught me how to row, how to steer straight even when the wind tried to push me off course. The boathouse had always been his domain, and after he was gone, none of us ever came back. Finn must have read my hesitation. "We don't have to do this," he said quietly. "Yes, we do," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "We need to know." We walked down the dock together, the old planks creaking beneath our feet. Finn tried the door. It was locked. I reached for the key, hands trembling, and slid it into the rusty lock. There was a moment's resistance, then a click. The door swung open. Inside it was dark and close, filled with the smell of lake water and old wood. Sunlight sliced through a crack in the boards, illuminating dust motes and casting everything in gold. There were the remnants of our childhood, life jackets, oars, a faded canoe paddle with my name on it. But there was something else too, a small metal lockbox sitting on the workbench, out of place in the musty clutter. Finn's breath caught. He stepped forward, almost reverent, and ran his hand over the box. "This is it," he whispered. "This is what Paul told me about." He glanced at me, eyes searching. "Are you sure?" "I want to know," I said, more certain than I felt. Finn knelt, trying the lid, but it wouldn't budge. He rummaged through the shelves and found a screwdriver. With a little effort, he pried the lock free. The lid popped open. Inside were papers, dozens of them, bundled together with a rubber band. There was a photo, too. Finn as a little boy, standing next to Dad and Paul, all of them smiling, sunlight glinting off the water behind them. I recognized the summer. It was just before Finn's mom left, before everything started to unravel. Finn rifled through the papers. There were bank statements, letters, and a stack of envelopes with names I didn't recognize. In the bottom, he found a small velvet pouch. He turned it over, spilling a heavy gold ring into his palm. The family crest was engraved on it. Our family's, not Paul's. "What is all this?" I breathed. Finn's hands shook as he picked up one of the letters, reading it quickly. His brow furrowed. It's a confession," he said, voice thin. Paul owed Dad a lot of money, but Dad covered it up. He took out loans, sold property, did everything he could to protect Paul's reputation. And in the end, Paul disappeared and left Dad to deal with the fallout. That's why everything went bad so fast. He looked at me, the pain raw on his face. Dad was trying to shield us. But Paul, he wanted me to take the blame if it ever came out. He thought if I delivered the package, he'd have leverage over Dad. Insurance. I felt dizzy, the weight of the truth pressing down. Finn slumped against the wall, rubbing his face. I spent so long thinking I was the problem that if I hadn't trusted Paul, none of this would have happened. But it was always bigger than me. Bigger than both of us. I sank down beside him, the ring still clutched in my hand. "We were just kids," I said. "You did what you thought was right." He let out a shaky laugh. "I didn't want you to get hurt. I thought if I disappeared, Paul would give up. Instead, he just waited." I looked at the photo again. Finn, Dad, Paul. The way Finn's hand was gripping Dad's shirt, the trust in his eyes. I wanted to go back in time and tell that little boy to run, to hide, to ask for help. But all I could do was be here now. Breeze rattled the door. Outside, the sun was climbing higher, burning the mist off the lake. Finn packed the letters and papers back into the box. "We should bring this to Mom and Dad. They deserve to know." I nodded, the truth settling like stones in my stomach. "We'll do it together." We left the boathouse, locking the door behind us. The dock felt steadier beneath my feet as we walked back toward shore, as if the lake itself was finally letting us go. Halfway up the path, Finn stopped, frowning. "What is it?" I asked. He knelt and picked up a scrap of paper wedged between two boards. It was crumpled and smeared with dirt, but the words were clear: "You're not done yet." I felt a chill race down my spine. Is that... Finn's face was white. Paul, it has to be. My heart hammered. I looked back at the boathouse, at the quiet water, at the woods that suddenly felt too close. The sense of safety we'd found was already slipping away. Finn folded the note and shoved it in his pocket. "We need to tell them everything, today." I nodded, fear sharpening my resolve. "Let's go." We hurried back through the forest, moving faster than before, our footsteps echoing with urgency. I clutched the ring in my fist, a small solid thing to anchor me to reality. When we reached the car, Finn tossed the lockbox in the trunk, his jaw set. We drove in tense silence, both of us watching the rearview mirror, half expecting a shadow to materialize out of the trees. Every car that passed made my shoulders tighten. I kept replaying Paul's words in my mind. "You're not done." Yet? What did he want? What more could he possibly take from us? When we pulled up to our parents' house, my stomach twisted. Mom's car was in the driveway and the lights were on inside. I met Finn's eyes, and for the first time all day, I felt something like hope. Whatever waited inside, we would face it together. Finn squeezed my hand before we got out. "Thank you, Soph, for coming with me." I managed a small, shaky smile. "I couldn't say no, remember?" He laughed, tired, but real. "I remember." We walked up the path, side by side, the lockbox between us and the weight of old secrets finally ready to be laid to rest. If you asked me, years later, what I remember about that day, it wouldn't be the cold metal of the lockbox in my hands or the sick churn of fear in my stomach. It would be the moment the door swung open and I saw Mom's face, her expression flickering through surprise, confusion, and something like hope as she saw me standing beside Finn. She stepped back to let us in. The smell of coffee and toast hung in the air, achingly normal. I wondered how many mornings she'd woken up thinking today would be the day Finn came home. Maybe she'd given up hoping. Maybe she never had. Dad was in the kitchen reading the paper. He looked up, his eyes landing on Finn first, and the quiet that settled over the room was so thick you could almost hear our hearts beating. "Finn?" Dad's voice cracked, a sound I'd never heard from him before. Finn didn't say anything at first. He just set the lockbox on the table, shoulders squared, eyes bright with resolve. "Sit down," Finn said, his voice low. "We need to talk. All of us." I sat beside him. Mom slid into her seat, trembling, her eyes darting from me to Finn and back again. Dad folded his hands, trying to look steady, but I saw the tremor in his fingers. Finn opened the box. He spread out the letters, the photo, the ring, and the confession. The morning light spilled over the kitchen table, illuminating every secret we'd uncovered. He started with the truth. About Paul, about the package, about the threats, the fear, and why he'd left that night. He didn't spare himself. He owned his mistakes, his silence, his leaving. Mom listened with her hands pressed to her mouth, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. Dad listened with his head bowed, the lines on his face deepening with every word. When Finn finished, he pushed the ring toward Dad. "He left this for you. I think he wanted to remind you what you were fighting for." Dad took the ring, turning it over in his palm, his mouth set in a tight, sad line. "I should have told you both what was happening. I thought I could protect you from all this." "You tried," Finn said quietly, "but secrets have a way of finding their own way out." For a while, nobody spoke. The clock on the wall ticked. Outside, a bird called. It felt like the entire house was holding its breath. Finally, Mom reached across the table and took Finn's hand. "You're home now. That's all that matters." But I saw the worry in her eyes, the fear that the past wasn't finished with us yet. Finn passed the confession to Dad, who read it in silence. The room was heavy with what had almost been lost. Years of anger, guilt, love too tangled to name. And then quietly, Dad started to cry. Not loud, not messy, just silent tears running down his cheeks, the way only someone who's carried a secret for too long can cry. "I'm sorry," Dad said at last, looking at us both. "I'm sorry for everything." We sat together, letting the words settle, letting the pain breathe. Then, Finn pulled out the last thing, the crumpled note we'd found at the boathouse. Dad's face drained of color as he read it. "Paul?" Finn nodded. "He's still out there. He's not finished." A new kind of tension filled the room. I saw Mom's hands tighten. Dad stood up, pacing the kitchen, running his hands through his hair. "What does he want?" I asked. "After all this time?" Dad shook his head. "I don't know. Maybe he wants money. Maybe he wants to hurt me. Maybe he just wants to know he can still scare us." A car drove by outside, the sound making us all jump. "I think we need to go to the police," Mom said, her voice thin but steady. "It's time to end this. No more secrets." Finn nodded. "I agree, but I don't want any of you to be alone. Not until we know he's gone." We agreed to stay together, at least for the night. Dad called his lawyer, and Mom locked every door. The house, which had always felt safe, now seemed too small, too exposed. But we didn't run. Not this time. Evening fell. We ate dinner together, awkward, quiet, but together. Afterward, Finn and I sat on the back porch, wrapped in old blankets, watching the stars come out. The summer air was cool, laced with the scent of cut grass and the distant hum of crickets. Finn leaned back, looking up at the sky. "Do you think it'll ever really be over?" I shrugged. "Maybe not the way we want, but I think we get to choose what we carry with us. The past doesn't have to own us anymore." He smiled. Soft, grateful, the way he used to when we were kids and he'd just beaten me at cards. "I missed this. Us." I nudged his shoulder. "I missed you too, even when I tried not to." A comfortable silence fell between us, heavy, with everything we'd survived. Then Finn's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his face changed. He handed it to me, his fingers shaking. A text from an unknown number. "Nice story, but you forgot one thing. See you soon." I stared at the words, a chill crawling down my back. Finn swallowed hard. "He's watching us." I handed back the phone, my mind racing. "He wants us scared, that's all. We don't give him what he wants." He nodded, jaw set. "No more running." We went inside, locking the doors again. I slept in my old room, the sounds of the house familiar and strange, at once. I kept the key from the boathouse under my pillow, a small comfort in the darkness. The night passed without incident. In the morning, Dad called the police. He turned over everything, the letters, the ring, the confession, even the threatening note. The officers took it seriously. They promised to investigate, to watch the house, to keep us safe. For the first time in years, I felt like maybe we had a chance. That afternoon, Finn found me on the back steps, staring out at the overgrown yard. "You think you'll ever forgive me?" he asked, voice tentative. I looked at him, really looked, at the boy he'd been, the man he was now, at all the pain and fear and loyalty between us. "I already have," I said softly. "You came back. That's what matters." He smiled, relief and gratitude written all over his face. He sat beside me, and for a long time we just watched the world go on. Maybe Paul would never really go away. Maybe the scars would always be there. But for the first time, we weren't letting fear write our story. We were together. We had the truth. And that was enough. As the sun set, Finn bumped my shoulder and grinned. "You know, Soph, you never could say no to me." I laughed, shaking my head. "Not when it counted." He smiled, looking out at the horizon, hope flickering in his eyes, and I realized sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't running or fighting or hiding. Sometimes it's just holding on, even when you're scared, even when the world comes so close you can't breathe. I closed my eyes, letting the moment settle, and thought, he came so close. And I couldn't say no, because family, real family, means never letting go, and I